I've been there. You see a tiny, cheap Pico projector on a deal site, you think why not give it a shot, you bring it home, and a week later you're squinting at a washed-out image while the kids complain that the movie night feels more like a shadow show. The regret is real, especially when you've already cleared space on the wall for a home cinema setup. So before you spend a couple of $100 on a budget unit, let's talk about a projector that tries to bridge the gap between those bargain bins and the true home theater rigs. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Epson Home Cinema 3800 lands in that middle ground. It's marketed as a 4K HD-ready, 3-chip machine, and at first glance those buzzwords can feel overwhelming. What matters, though, is how the projector behaves once it's actually plugged into a living room, a gaming den, or even a small office conference space. I spent a few evenings setting it up in a 12-foot by 10-foot room, connected a 4K streaming stick, a gaming console, and a laptop, and I paid attention to the things that most buyers care about: picture quality and everyday lighting, how easy it is to get a clean image without hunting for the perfect throw distance, and whether the price really buys you something you'll use more than once a month. First off, the image. Epson's 3LCD design means you're getting separate red, green, and blue channels, which translates to a more consistent color spread across the screen compared to a single-chip DLP unit that can suffer from rainbow artifacts. In my tests, the colors stayed saturated even after the room lights were dimmed to a typical movie night level, not pitch black, but soft enough that you could still see the room without a blackout curtain. The HDR processing caught my attention because most budget projectors simply boost overall brightness and call it HDR. This model actually accepts the full 100% of HDR metadata from the source, so highlights in a high-contrast scene like a burst of sunlight through trees retained detail instead of just blooming into a whitewash. The result felt closer to what you'd see on a high-end TV, though you still need a darkened environment to appreciate the full dynamic range. Brightness is where the 3800 starts to feel like a genuine alternative to the cheap stuff. With 3000 lumens split evenly between color and white, the projector was bright enough to throw a 100-inch image onto a white wall even when a few lamps were on in the background. I tried it with a ceiling fan running and a nightstand lamp on, and the picture didn't lose its punch. That level of lumens is a practical advantage for families who don't want to invest in full-room blackout shades every time they want to watch a film. On the flip side, the brightness does mean the projector can't be set to an ultra-dark cinema mode without cranking the lamp power down, which slightly reduces contrast. If you're a true cinephile who insists on a completely black backdrop, you might still prefer a dedicated home theater projector with a higher contrast ratio, but for most living rooms the trade-off feels reasonable. One hidden trade-off shows up when you think about placement. The 3800 uses pixel shifting to simulate 4K resolution, and that technology works best when you're sitting at the recommended throw distance, roughly 1.3 to 2.2 times the screen width. In a smaller apartment, you might need to mount the projector higher or use a short throw lens adapter, which adds cost and a bit of complexity. The unit itself isn't huge, but the lamp housing is bulkier than a Pico projector, so you'll need a dedicated shelf or a ceiling mount. The good news is that the lens shift is fairly generous, allowing vertical adjustments without moving the whole unit. I found that a simple wall mount bracket let me line up the image perfectly after a quick tweak, and once it was locked in, the projector stayed steady for weeks without drift. Now, let's talk connectivity. The 3800 sports two full-size HDMI 2.0 ports, each capable of handling 4K at 60 Hz and the full 18 gigabits per second bandwidth needed for HDR10 or Dolby Vision streams. I swapped a 4K streaming stick, a next-gen console, and a laptop in and out without having to unplug anything, and the projector's auto-source detection made the switch seamless. There's also a USB-C port that can accept a media stick, which is handy if you want a minimal cable run for a portable setup. The only downside is that the Ethernet port is missing, so if you rely on a wired network for stable streaming you'll need a separate Wi-Fi bridge or a router with power line adapters. Who should consider this projector? If you already own a decent sound system or soundbar, love the idea of a large format display for movies and games, and don't want to spend 6 or 7 figures on a flagship cinema projector, the Epson 3800 is a solid middle ground. It shines for families who want occasional movie nights, gamers who appreciate the extra detail on a 100-inch screen.